morning, everybody. Can you hear me all right at the back? And thank you, Paolo, for that introduction. I'm going to talk about rare cancers from the patient and caregiver perspective. And I'd like to start by saying that although rarity can be thought of as a precious thing, for the nearly 3 million people in Europe whose lives have been touched by a rare cancer, their journeys are very much like traveling through uncharted and shadowed areas on the cancer map. Each year, 400,000 Europeans are diagnosed with a rare cancer. And it's really very hard to understand the realities of what it's like to live with a rare cancer until it directly touches your life. I didn't really realize what all this was about until my son was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2004 at age 24. Now, in the United Kingdom, where I live, over half of cancer mortality, that's 53%, is caused by rare and less common cancers. I think that's quite a staggering statistic. And I think that we can, although there are no statistics for other countries in Europe like that, I think we can safely assume that figures would be very similar to that in other European countries. And I've discovered that even in the richest and most powerful countries on the planet, patients can be lost in a maze of inequitable and uneven care. And in some countries, there is no national system in place to try to ensure consistent quality of treatment and service delivery. And heaven help those patients who live in the less developed countries, in Europe in particular, where access to even the most basic aspects of palliative care and support are non-existent. And at this stage of my presentation, I was going to refer to my colleague Christina Andrikuta, who is going to come and speak about rare cancers in Eastern Europe. As you know, she can't come, but I would like to read out to you some of her comments that appear in the press release, which I think you've probably had. Now, Christina is the chair of the European Cancer Patient Coalition, ECPC, otherwise known as, and she chairs the Rare Cancer Action Group. And Christina says that it's so hard to find a right center of treatment in Eastern Europe. And the situation here is even worse, with very limited diagnostic and treatment possibilities for rare cancers, with the usual barriers for access to drug reimbursement, and patients being put on long waiting lists. Action should take place at 2 levels. European institutions need to facilitate the coordination, cooperation, and coherence of national, regional, and local initiatives addressing rare cancers. Rare cancer patients just don't have the luxury of time. Now, in the next few minutes, I'd like to paint a picture for you of the battleground against rare cancers from the patient and caregiver perspective. To start with, we have late diagnosis, misdiagnosis, and subsequent poor referral rates, all at primary care level. And this is due to a general lack of awareness about symptoms, disease characteristics, and also the fact that many GPs will only see, for example, one brain tumor in their entire career. Clearly, comprehensive guidelines on diagnosis are desperately needed. Now, across the EU, centers of expertise and European reference networks for rare cancers are few and far between. So patients often have to travel long distance to access the care or the clinical trials that they need. And this raises the thorny issue of cross-border health care, and that alone could be the subject of a whole press conference, so I won't dwell on that now, but it's something for you to note. There's also a lack of consistency in cancer registries from one country to another, and even within the same country. There's an inadequate level of support and information. Details about rare cancers, the treatment options, and support are notoriously difficult to find. And this affects not only patients, but their families and caregivers as well. And as we all know, you can have the patient, but the journey is undertaken by the families and the caregivers as well. So they're very important elements of this whole picture. We have limited access to key services like counseling and psychosocial support and psychological support. These are routinely available for patients with the more common cancers, but not so much for those with rare cancers. We also have a shortage of tissue banks, which is another very, very important issue. You need tissue to research rare cancers, and if you don't have the tissue banks, that comes to a kind of very abrupt stop. But actually, there is a lot more to this as well. We have a terrible shortage of funding for research into rare cancers in Europe, and this has been further exacerbated by the economic crisis that we all face. Treatment options, as Paolo referred to, are extremely limited, and despite the incentives associated with the EU orphan drug legislation, there are still far too few pharmaceutical companies who are willing to risk investing in developing new drugs for rare cancers, given the very small size of the potential market. Crucially, we need more clinical trials in Europe for rare cancers, and these trials should form part of the standard care of every patient with a rare cancer. Furthermore, many European and international cancer control organizations have prioritized prevention, screening, and lifestyle changes in the fight against cancer. Now, these are all excellent initiatives, of course, but not every cancer can be helped by this approach. Brain tumors, for example, affect people randomly, and we have no realistic screening for them. The cause of most primary brain tumors is unknown, so we have no prevention methods for them. And there is no known preventative option by assuming a healthy lifestyle, diet, or exercise in order to avoid a brain tumor. We're becoming increasingly concerned, actually, that there is a very real possibility that rare cancers could be sidelined in major healthcare initiatives, such as the forthcoming 2011 United Nations Summit on Non-Communicable Diseases, because of the sole focus on prevention. Prevention is actually irrelevant to many, many rare cancers. One of the biggest hurdles facing patients with rare cancers is equitable access to therapies, which has also been mentioned previously. And for rare cancers like brain tumors and others, these therapies don't fit easily into the reimbursement systems, and they certainly don't come cheap. So they often don't meet the cost-effectiveness requirements of health technology assessment, although they may be clinically efficacious. So it's crucial that HTA, health technology assessment, doesn't only look at cost-effectiveness when appraising a promising new therapy, but that they also consider the rarity and severity of the disease, unmet need, the economic value of a caregiver and the value that that caregiver brings to the equation, and vitally, innovation and the true value of a human life. In closing, I would like to say this. What truly matters in our care is the process of our care. And in this process, patients with rare cancers often face despair, nihilism, and hopelessness when confronted with the barriers that I've run through very, very quickly in the last few moments. For all those whose lives have been touched by a rare cancer, we really must remain very, very focused. We must keep our resolve firm, and we need to keep our hopes high for these patients. I always believe that every morning we should ask ourselves, what can we do for rare cancer patients today? And every night we should ask, have we done enough? I thank you for listening. Thank you.